Wow.
I think I see the prerequisites for product analyst, right? Hiking,
Yes.
food.
Well, if that's it, then I should
Pets.
become one as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're also a coffee
Yeah, wow.
addict.
I love this.
Join the cult.
Yeah.
Join the cult.
Sounds amazing. I'm sold.
But how can we promote this mindset of I'm going to build the simplest thing possible to test my assumption, my hypothesis, and then move forward from there with the pure intention of learning?
But what is your career path, or how did you end
We
up
can
here?
go really far back, but I'll save you the details.
It was nice.
So today we have a really nice topic, a topic I really would love to learn more about. And this ties into the cross collaboration we did last time with design, but this time we have product analytics.
Indeed.
Ta-da.
Welcome,
And-
That's
guys.
us. Thank
And we
you.
have here we have Laura and Joep, our special guests for today.
Hello.
So maybe you would like to introduce yourself. Maybe let's start with Laura.
Sure. Yeah, Laura here, lead product analyst at Bol. It's been 10, 11 months since I joined, so not exactly new anymore, but still quite fresh.
Yeah.
I am Portuguese, moved to the Netherlands 8 to 9 years ago, so it's been a while. Have been living since in first Rotterdam, mostly Amsterdam. 31 years old. Live with my Dutch fiance. Getting married this summer, so that's
Wow.
very exciting.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And our Greek dog. So that's a little bit of a we are quite an international household, I would say.
What language do you
Indeed.
speak?
Yeah.
Wow.
The dog doesn't mind exactly which
No.
language. And other than that, I think what I could share is that I like to travel quite a lot. Well, I don't travel quite a lot because, I have obviously some
A job.
commitments. Let's call it like that. But when I can, I like to travel. I like to hike, and I love food. So that means both cooking and eating.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Wow.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Nice.
How about you, Joep?
Yeah, I already see some patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been at Bol for 3 years now. I'm a senior product analyst. Live here in Utrecht, also together with my fiance. We have 2 cats, however. I guess we're more of a cat household. Love analyzing things, crunching numbers, diving into things. And in my free time, I'm really into sports. I run a lot. Recently started doing CrossFit. These things allow me to go balls to the wall.
Love it.
Get my energy out
Yeah.
and then refocus. Also into coffee. We have a very fancy espresso machine at home. So I really enjoy using that and like kind of getting the best espresso possible
Oh, man.
and scoring some good points with my fiance by bringing that upstairs in the morning. Traveling, hiking, reading, board games. These are all things I'm
me
into.
Wow.
I think I see the the prerequisites for product analyst, right? Hiking,
Yes.
food.
Well, if that's it, then I should
Pets.
become one as well.
yeah, you're also a coffee
Yeah, wow.
addict.
I love this.
Join the cult.
Yeah.
Join the cult.
Sounds amazing. I'm sold.
Come
Cool.
join.
Wait, one nerd question before we start. What is the coffee machine?
It's a VBM Domo bar.
Okay, I thought I was a coffee nerd, but
Okay.
I have no idea. I'm
No.
gonna look this up after.
Yeah,
If
you
you
But
told me
sounds good.
that's the microphone brand and model, I wouldn't blink twice. It sounds the same to me.
Yeah, but
Sounds good.
everyone has his passions, right?
Yeah.
But next to your passions, you also have product analytics. But enlighten us,
Is it not the same?
maybe.
Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah.
Tell us what
Yeah.
is it? What
Yeah.
is it?
Maybe I can get started. Well, I think the best way to explain it's usually to go back to the basics, and it helps in my experience to bring it to perhaps a business that people are more familiar with. So I will use the analogy of the bakery because I know it has already some history in this podcast. So I'll go for it. Let's imagine that you want to start a bakery. Maybe you're a baker, maybe you're just an entrepreneur. You start by thinking, well, where should I maybe put the shop? Maybe you start small, you start with a little cart in a corner and you sell one type of bread. I would assume that you would want to know some things about, how your business is going. Think, for example, you want to understand how this bread is selling. That's the most basic. Like, do I sell all the bread that I bake each day? At which times are customers dropping by to buy my bread? And then you might start experimenting with moving your cart around. Do I sell more when I move the cart around? Maybe then you want to introduce more product lines, more breads. Maybe you want to play around with flour types. Do I sell better when I change the flour type, when I do a different mixture? Are people now into rye bread, into spelt bread, into haver bread? I don't know. And now I just realized I used the Dutch word. Oat bread. So all of these things, what we're actually talking about while abstracting, we're talking about metrics. So the sellability, or basically the sales, how much you sell, how much you waste, what the shelf time of your product is, all of this can be translated into an online platform, an e-commerce platform. And that's actually where we work. Surprise, surprise, it's not a bakery. It's Bol. And in an e-commerce platform, you are interested in similar things. So you want to basically know at which times your customers shop, what products do they buy, also for your partners, how easy or hard it is to upload some products. Do they feel enough support in setting the right prices? Are they setting the right promotions? Could they be bolder? All of these things are topics for product analytics.
Mm-hmm.
I think a clear story. Yeah? That explains a lot.
I like it.
Yeah.
And nice throwback to indeed the talk from Robin.
Yeah.
Again, getting hungry from it, but I like the analogy. I
Yeah.
like the bakery and indeed Bol, because it is really similar.
And thirsty. Coffee.
Yeah.
Bread.
Yeah, and I think it's super nice because product analytics itself, the concept, well, it seems how you explain it, indeed really tangible. And it has had, I think in Bol, but maybe in other companies as well, a lot of different names, right? So we have seen product analytics. I think before it was called business analysts. If I'm correct.
There are some differences, I would say, but I agree with you. So you will see the same role named differently across history of a company, but also across different companies. And product analytics specifically, often you hear it referred to as data science product, data science insights. You could also have companies that, because of their maturity or choices, instead of differentiating across all or among all the different roles of analysts, they might go for a data analyst role that covers it all. But there are some differences. I would say that as a business analyst, you're more likely to be focused on company performance, financial performance, those top metrics that really act as the heartbeat for the business. Product analytics is more focused on the performance of individual products, sometimes even down to features. And that also dictates how we eventually work, how we organize ourselves, because it should really emphasize and be based on close collaboration between crafts, whereas and again, different people might have different experiences, but in my experience, the business analyst role or the financial analyst role, it sits a little bit more detached from product development, and the stakeholders that they serve are different.
Yeah, right.
I see.
So you're also part of product team, I guess.
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
I can also chime in here in this conversation. When I started at Bol 3 years ago, I came in as a business analyst. 2 years ago, Bol as a company decided to migrate away from the role of business analyst, at least within the product organization. And the role of product analyst was really like set in stone and kind of put forward as the next step. I jumped into that opportunity, and there's some distinct differences between the work I was doing back then and the work that I'm doing now. And it has a lot to do with like real expertise and craft. I think as a business analyst, your work can be quite general. You're basically supporting a product team wherever it needs help. That can be with the requirement engineering, that can be the back end of a delivery process with testing things. As a product analyst, you have a clear job description or a clearer job description, really more focused around the analytics of the product, really crunching the numbers, diving into the data, and through that sort of deeper craft expertise that you can offer, I think you can also add more value to the product that way.
Yeah, that's nice. Also from my own experience, I feel like I've been in a team with business analysts, and there was more like a project management almost kind of role, whereas I feel like now it's way more backed by numbers, research, discovery, really having hypothesis in place to just see, okay, whatever can we experiment on and how will this end up in a result?
It definitely creates more focus, but the fact that the role is relatively new within Bol also comes with challenges, mostly around identity and around what can people expect from you.
I see.
So this has been fun. This has been a fun journey in the last 2 years or so.
Yeah. And talking maybe about your journey. So if you rewind time even more, like 3 years, even before that time, what was your career path, or how did you end
we
up
can
here?
go really far back, but I'll save you the details.
Nursery school.
When you didn't drink coffee yet.
He was 19.
We can go way back.
Yeah.
No, I studied information science, which is it was always kind of mentioned as like you are the bridge in between business and IT. We had some technical topics. We learned how to code a little bit, but not as much as the true computer science majors. And we had a quite a broad base. So we had some we did some work on databases, business intelligence, business information systems. And they basically told us you're going to be either a consultant or you're going to be an analyst of some sort. Well, they were right on the money. I started out as a consultant, and I later migrated into my role as a business analyst, later product analyst. So yeah, I definitely found my way there. And I think the biggest thing that's changed over the years is just sort of the focus. Like, what am I really doing? How am I really adding value on a daily basis? I'm mostly doing that now through data and analytics, whereas in my previous jobs, first as a consultant, then as a business analyst, it was way more generic. It was way more on a higher abstraction level, I believe.
Yeah. So you've described a bit about what you do as a product analyst. So what's also interesting is, so what are the skills besides baking bread, making coffee, hiking? What are the skills you need to become a product analyst?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think ultimately, and this is also part of the framework that we use when we, for example, post a vacancy or evaluate candidates in an interview process, we keep coming back to 4 main skills that we believe make a good product analyst. First one is, and in no particular order actually, so it's not that one is more important than the other, but the first one would be subject matter expertise. This is something you build, of course, so we don't expect this of a candidate, but we expect the willingness to pick this up in a candidate. And when we look at our teams, this means that as a product analyst, you build expertise in a certain topic or topics, and that actually comes through in your analysis, in your contributions to projects, to initiatives. You need to understand what the product team is trying to achieve, where they're coming from, and how their products enable that vision, that objective. Then, that's obviously not enough. We also need to have very reliable data. And as a product analyst, you're not alone in this battle to get quality data, but you are a key persona in making it happen. So together with your product team, specifically with the engineering team, but also with this role called analytics engineer, which we have at Bol, but you could translate it in other organizations to a data engineer to some extent. So with these roles, together with these roles, you really ensure that there's a solid foundation, solid data foundation on which you can then run your analysis, and also that you expose this high quality data to the different consumers, internal consumers and potentially external consumers if that's the case. Then, in order to actually get your points across, you're going to have, one, the ability to communicate your insights. So not just, here are all these numbers I came across, go figure it out yourself.
Good luck.
Yeah, that wouldn't really be of service. But what are the highlights? What's the so what of these numbers? What is the recommendation? Very important, and actually something that we try to instigate people to even start with. Start your reports, your communications with this is what I recommend and this is why. It makes it a lot more appealing for a non-analytical audience, an audience of decision makers. And last but not least, it's important that the analysis is statistically sound. So there is a foundation of statistical knowledge that is expected of all product analysts. And then, of course, you will see that depending on what kind of work that product team is developing at that point, but also the specific interests of the product analyst, these different skills might come through more or less. They might receive more investment or less. And there's a little bit of room, of course, within the framework to develop according to your preferences. But this is the foundation that we expect of everyone.
I see. It also seems pretty hard, I must say. Like if you're just fresh, for example, from university, starting out, and within a Bol company as Bol, it's nice. You have a lot of metrics, a lot of data. Yeah. Sounds like the perfect playground, but it can also be quite overwhelming, I would say.
Absolutely.
Is that something you see when people, for example, newly join?
I would say yes. There's a certain degree of feeling overwhelmed, and we expect it and we embrace it, and it's okay. I think do you know console games where you have a character, or maybe you have multiple characters, and you have like the different skills, and then you have these bars. Like this one has a lot of strength, not so much speed, and you know, we all represent a little bit of a character. We do see, of course, more junior team members will have like the bars less filled, and that's okay, that's to be expected. And then we will also see that regardless of where you are in your development, there are some bars that are always going to be more filled because you invest more there, because that's where you feel pulled towards. It's okay, but the overwhelming nature, yes, I agree.
I also see some of these points being inherent at working at Bol. I think at Bol you have a lot of freedom to do things a certain way. But you know, you need to be able to embrace that freedom and put it to good use. And I think in combination with a role where not everything's set in stone, that can lead to extra challenges. So it requires a certain set of skills to really thrive in the role. But I do believe that for juniors, there's a lot of opportunity to make it your own.
Yeah, I fully agree. That's also indeed super nice opportunity. I'm also quite curious, like just to make it really tangible. When I was still in uni, as a like computer science student, software engineer, you had a lot of these day in the life videos of a software engineer working at, I don't know, Google or YouTube or whatever. And I always watched these with some classmates, and we were looking, and you just saw from the 8 hours that they were working, they were eating for 6 hours long, and they were PlayStationing for an hour doing nothing. Seems amazing, like the perfect job on paper. I'm just really curious, and be fully transparent. How does your day look like? Like, what is a day in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I really like before I dive into my day is just sort of the hybrid nature of the role. It's sort of mixing technical skills with social skills. It's mixing focus time with time to align and to pursue and to convince people of certain ideas. So my day is usually a mix of something like that. As an analyst, you need time to really get into the details. So you need focus blocks. I believe you guys are engineers. You know all about this. It just doesn't work if your weeks are filled with these 30-minute gaps with like meetings in between.
Yeah, horrible.
So you need to, in your week or in your day, safeguard some time to really make progress on the deeper work that you're doing. But at the same time, if you're only spending time on the deep stuff, then you miss out on an opportunity to take people along for the ride, to share your process with people, to align on certain things. So I think in my day, I'm also talking to people a lot. That can be a product manager, asking about a certain direction that I want to take an analysis in. It can be talking to a peer, another product analyst, to ask about, okay, well, I have a metric that I want to measure. How am I going to measure this? Am I using the right statistical analysis here? Like, can you help me out? Can you jump in? So yeah, my day's a mix of that. It's a mix of reaching out to people, trying to align on things, not trying to disappear too far in my own bubble, but also finding the time to really focus and to get the work done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned a bit about working with analytics engineer, with a product manager. So what is the cross collaboration? What does it look like? With who are you working with the most? What do you need from each other?
No.
How do you help each other?
Yeah.
So at Bol we have sort of these different phases of where an initiative is. It can be really in this ideation phase where we're still trying to explore and come up with new ideas. It can be more in this delivery phase where we know what we want to build and we just have to deliver it. And in every phase, kind of the mix and the people that you collaborate with is different. And that's what is really fun and really nice at working in like a cross-craft environment. So upfront, you have a lot of contact with your product manager. You're really a team in that sense. You're trying together to find out what's best for your customers. And in a way, as a product analyst, you're always trying to enable your product to do better. And you do whatever it takes to kind of enable that. So early in the discovery process, you might be working more together with designers, with product managers, with maybe business stakeholders that have a certain wish. Later on in the process, you might be aligning more with engineers when you're really like moving towards an implementation.
Yeah.
And then you can imagine that way in the end, maybe you need to like convey some results. You need to share what you've done. You need to track whether or not the changes that you've made actually contributed towards the metrics that you care about as a team, as a company. And we as product analysts also play a big part in making sure that the team has the right information to kind of like know where they're going, know whether or not the work that they're doing is adding value. So in short, it really depends on sort of what phase you're in. And there's a big mix in the people that you have to be able to work together with.
I think it's nice the talking to different types of people with different kind of messages. It keeps it interesting, I think.
Yeah, I second that. So in my role, I think the biggest responsibility, or not the biggest, but one of the biggest, is to align with product, with engineering, with design, and also with other roles within the company. But these are really at the core of product and tech, to align and make sure that our teams are basically focused on the same objectives and working with each other and not inadvertently against each other. And to make sure also that the goals that were set by our senior leadership are rolling downwards correctly to all the different layers, from the department to the area to the team, to make sure that the strategy is translated with clarity and we are rowing in the same direction. And of course that comes with making trade-offs, with refining, sharpening some of the guidance that is given, and also ensuring that the teams are appropriately staffed to be able to develop the work that they want and to achieve the goals that they have set themselves for. So for example, if you want to run and analyze 5 experiments, 5 experiments in a certain quarter, and we have not planned accordingly in the product analytics side, that might be an issue. So you might find yourself with a lot of experiments that have ran but did not really get looked at, and we don't want that, of course, because that would be a waste of our development efforts. So it's about ensuring that the roadmaps align, and also that the initiatives are adding up to the grand total that we are trying to achieve.
Now, so it's getting more clear to us, I think, what product analytics actually is. But so we were interested. Do you have like examples or like your biggest like success while doing this job?
Sure. Should I go first?
Go ahead.
Yeah? All right. Now, you put a lot of responsibility on the biggest. I'm searching through my brain for the biggest. No, but I think I have an interesting one. It's actually from a previous job, not from my current one. And so it was also an e-commerce platform, a marketplace, let's call it like that. And one of the biggest annoyances that kept coming through in research and interviews with customers was that they felt disrupted in their search by sponsored content, by advertising. Might sound familiar. I think this is something that a lot of platforms hear. If there's some sort of paid content that, disrupts the normal order of the search engine, people notice and they complain. And we kept hearing this feedback, and obviously there is a reason why there's paid content, so companies tend to be quite protective of that because it's an important revenue stream. But at some point we wanted to try what would happen if, right? And the challenge here was that because of the way that the search results were organized, it was not so easy to test with. So they were not coming from a single feed, let's call it like that. There were multiple inputs, and it was not so easy to ensure that we kept displaying the same number of items while enabling such an experiment. At the same time, you would also wonder if that's even desirable. Given that it's so expensive and so effortful to build such a feature, should you start by immediately building the feature? And here's where not just product analytics, but the collaboration between product analytics, engineering, product management comes in, and design, of course. What we basically decided was to move forward with a fake door test, which I will explain what it is. It's basically when you put the button, the filter, the feature, it's visually there, the customer can interact with it, but it doesn't lead anywhere. So if you do choose to interact with it as a customer, you're going to see something along the lines of, oops, not quite there yet. Oh. Would you like to give some feedback on why you pressed this? Or what would you like to see here? Or working on it?
Smart.
Yeah.
So it's a double win. You do get the insight on how much appetite is there for the feature in the first place, and you also get a chance to ask for feedback, for input from your customer, from your audience. What we did find out was that despite all of the feedback that we had received over the years about the need for this, when we did put the button in there, and of course it was for a small percentage of traffic. This is important. You don't want to disrupt millions of customers. You want to do it small and learn. We did learn that the CTR, click-through rate, on that filter, which would filter out the commercial content that people complain so much about, the CTR was really low.
Okay.
Like neglectable. So definitely not worth building, at least in that shape and form. You could argue that it's such a need that we should just cater for it by default. But that's further exploration. That's another learning to come.
Yeah.
The main learning was, yes, if we do build it in this way, it's not going to have as much traction as we thought it would, and the effort to build would be gigantic. So here, I think the role of product analytics was, and because I know the circumstances, I know that's how it went, was really to give that advice, to ensure that it was built in that way as a fake door test before all the resources of engineering primarily were consumed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, saving a lot of money there.
I think so, yes.
Cool.
Yeah, but it's also super smart to go live with, well, not even, you can call it an MVP, but like really small, tiny MVP that just test the hypothesis. Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
It's super smart.
Yeah.
This also kind of relates to the term product analyst, right?
Yeah.
Because product, you have to kind of understand what product means before you can really grasp what product analytics entails.
Mm-hmm.
And product within Bol doesn't mean like all the shoes or the vases or all the other beautiful products that we sell in our store.
Mm-hmm.
Product really is about the product organization, the way we build, like let's call it software or features or things on our platform.
Mm-hmm.
The things IT teams are responsible for. You can kind of put it like that. And trying to come up with what to build next, the worst thing you can do is make a bunch of assumptions, spend a whole lot of time building something, and then finding out all the way at the end that what you build is not what customers want.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of the product mindset is a lot about trying to test the smallest possible thing right up in front of the process to see if it adds any value, to gather evidence based on whether or not your hypotheses or assumptions are correct, to prove that what your ideas are is what your customer wants, in order to minimize the risks of all these resources that you are potentially investing in something that nobody's actually waiting for.
Yeah. And I think that's also a really interesting point, though, because I don't want to generalize, but sometimes customer behavior can be really weird or something you definitely did not predict in your hypothesis. And I think that's super interesting to also be the person that can well say, okay, we're doing this MVP, but we're seeing that this is it's just not adding value or maybe even negative value.
Oh.
So let's wipe it off the table.
So what we're really obsessed with is running experiments to kind of see what we can do up front to really prove our case, gather that evidence that we're talking about. And if we're talking about successes, one of the things that I experienced in the last 2 years that made me very happy was the fact that we were able to unlock experimentation within the product team that I'm working for. There was a real need to kind of move forward and test things. The way we did it in the past is by looking at historic data and to kind of inference conclusions based on that. But we weren't able to test anything live. And in an ideal situation, you would A/B test. You would put customer A in bucket A, and you would put customer B in bucket B, and you would show them something different, and you would measure the results and see if there's a tangible difference between them. For technical reasons, we weren't able to do that within our product, but by kind of like pushing through and taking initiative and looking for alternatives, we found a way to design the experiment differently. What we did is we basically said, okay, well, iPhones and Samsung phones are kind of similar. We can't distinguish between users, but maybe we can apply a different version of the algorithm that's within our scope to product A and to product B, and to see if we do that to enough products and we just gather enough data, we can draw conclusions from that. And that turned out to be a big unlock for us. It allowed us to test certain features that we hadn't been able to test in a live environment before. And it really opened the way to kind of come up with new ideas, to improve the algorithm, to in the end make better decisions for our customers. That's a really nice example of why experimentation and in specific also the role of product analyst can potentially unlock a lot of value for a company.
Yeah.
Cool.
Again, really smart. I also feel like my teammates, iOS and Android engineer, will be upset now with him seeing the similarity. But like, I think the point is super smart that you guys are some sort of like researchers into how can we make with the bare requirements that we're having or the boundaries that we're having, how can we still get insights from these kind of scenarios? I think that's super cool. And just to make it really tangible with the experiments, you mean indeed that a user A can see something different than a user B, a bit of like for example, Instagram as well. Like your friend can have a different version of the app than
exactly.
Right?
The classic example is you show a yellow button where it was a green button before, and you see if people click on it more often.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so maybe part of your traffic, part of your visitors are seeing the green button, part are seeing the yellow button, and you're basically monitoring whether conversion rate goes up or down, what happens to the order size, do people spend more or less? This is an example,
One thing is you can measure anything. We can go wild on whatever. And what's really important for a product to be successful is to have a clear vision on what matters to them. What are the sort of metrics or key indicators that what they're doing is improving the lives of customers, where customers can be people buying things on the platform of Bol. It can be partners. It can be advertisers.
Yeah, because I can also see that they could sometimes fight with each other, right? So, for example, the CTR will be better, so more people click on a certain thing, but I don't know, they look for a shorter period of time at something.
Absolutely, yeah. So for that, we have the definition or the concept of both success metrics and health metrics. So the success metrics are the things you are actually trying to influence, to drive up, to drive down. CTR being a great example. Usually we want, assuming that it's a shopping experience, you want more. The more, the better. But there's also health metrics that we should monitor. And often it comes down to ensuring that we do not profit in the short term on the future of the platform, on the long term viability and how pleasant the experience is for the customer, because the customer might go all out in this moment in time because of some tweaks to the UX, but it's not something that's going to happen sustainably, and we need to watch out to make sure that we don't put such types of traps, because it's not in the customer's best interest, and it's certainly not in our best interest as well. So there's always that tension between success, but not at all costs, and we have the health metrics there to keep us within the guardrails.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so we've now been talking about like a lot of really cool stories, I would say. Are there also some big challenges or some things that didn't go that well, or are still challenges ahead?
For sure.
I think the classic trap is sort of you're building a dashboard and you deliver it, and it has all these nice metrics and fancy buttons, and then it just sits there. It gathers dust. Nothing really happens with it. Maybe you look at it, and maybe your maturity level is like one step higher, and you have a meeting where every week you look at the dashboard and you say, that went up or that went down. But you're still very far removed from making decisions or taking action based on what you see there. So it really is this notion of how literate is your team when it comes to data. So how comfortable are they with numbers and the metrics that you show? How much does it really live? And like how high is the quality of the conversations that you're having within your team about these numbers, about these metrics, about these dashboards? And in our ideal world, we serve, so we make something like that available, and then the people around us have the full capacity to kind of like use that to its full extent, and they come to you with questions like, we see this, can we explore that further, can we dive into that? I think we have a lot of natural curiosity, so when we see things go up or down, our hands start to itch because we want to dive into it.
Yeah.
And I think as a culture, as a company, we can still take some steps to really like improve those conversations that we're having on based on these numbers that we're seeing every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you touched on a very good concept there, which is the difference between output and outcome, right? The dashboard would be the output, and there's even an input. So the input is the hours that the analyst spent on creating that dashboard, the data that goes into it. The output is a dashboard, but that's not the final goal. That's not where it should stop. And we need to fight ourselves, our human nature. We have a tendency to feel really accomplished when we tick a task from our list, right? It's normal. It's okay. So we need to kind of push ourselves to go after the outcome. What is this dashboard supposed to change? What will this group of people be able to do now that they were not able to do before? This is where the real change takes place. And I think that is absolutely a challenge to push ourselves to have that hygiene and then be the role model around us as well. Because if we cannot do it with our own dashboards and with our own products, because it is a data product, then it's tough to create a culture where we all ask that of ourselves and of our teams. I think another challenge would be to reduce complexity and to break big projects, big deliveries into smaller chunks. If you think about that fake door test example, that had a very low cost and it gave us a big learning, and we avoided possibly spending a lot of very valuable engineering time on building it. How can we have more of these moments in our teams, and how can we have it at scale? So not just one team, but how can we promote this mindset of I'm going to build the simplest thing possible to test my assumption, my hypothesis, and then move forward from there. And sometimes I'm going to do this with the pure intention of learning. It's not even shippable. I don't have any intention that it will ever be shippable. I just want to really learn about this behavior. It pays in the long term, but it's really challenging to create, again, because of the human nature. We keep on making it bigger and more complex because perhaps there's something in our education, in the way we grew up, that we were kind of wired to think that more is better, but often less is better. Yeah.
Wise words.
Thanks.
Yeah. And does that ever upset you? Like, for example, sometimes we in my team as well, we're doing a lot of experimenting, and we think, okay, now we've come up with the best idea ever, and we're going full into it. We're super excited. We're testing it on customers, and they're like, "This is awesome. We have to give this a try." Then we run an experiment, like an A/B test, and we see, okay, this is insanely negatively impacting all our metrics, and we're like, we just don't get it. But is that also, would you say, would that be a skill as well as as a product analyst to be able to handle with like these kind of curveballs almost?
I do yoga for that. Just kidding. So I wear the bull T-shirt, right? So of course it upsets me. And when I worked at other places, it upset me equally because I want that experiment to succeed. I want us to get our bottom line higher and to just surprise and amaze and delight our customers more and more each day. At the same time, being a professional in this field, I've seen enough of this happening that I also built some mechanisms to put it into perspective. And I think it starts with really having this learning mindset and valuing the learnings as much as the wins. And I say wins in quotes because ultimately a learning can be and is a win, but only if we truly believe in it and if we act on that learning later on. And this is something that I think we all need to really kind of put in our heads. It doesn't happen overnight, but once it does, we are set up for a lot more success and a lot more fulfillment as professionals, because suddenly that A/B test that didn't go well becomes a source of happiness in a weird, twisted turn of events. Because you suddenly see all the possibilities instead of seeing the disappointment of something that didn't go live. So going live shouldn't be the end goal.
I see.
It's a great insight.
Yeah, it can be a bit counterintuitive to think like, oh, this thing that really wanted to work isn't working. But in an ideal world, you're running like 10 of these things at the same time. So you almost expect 9 of them to fail, and then you hope to find the one that works. So there's definitely something in just like, continuously putting in the work to do this. But something that I also, like a skill that I also had to learn or embrace that is kind of paired with this is you really have to become aware of your own biases as an analyst.
Mm-hmm.
If you identify too much with the result, you want it too much to work, then you can frame things in a certain way to make it seem like that. But you're not actually helping anyone by doing that.
Yeah.
When I got more into data, I really had this idea that, data is the objective truth and there's no twisting and turning about it. But the more you work with it, the more you realize, I can define a metric 1,000 ways. I can make all these decisions to analyze the results. And the decisions that I make, and then in the end, what do you show to a stakeholder? Ideally, you show them one number or one graph to really pull them over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many micro decisions that you have to make there that if you're not aware enough of your own biases and try to stay as objective as possible, try to keep the main goal in mind, then it's really easy to be pulled off course and to have that final number that you present embody something that's not the best version it could be, or your customer in the end, who is the one that you're trying to serve.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And maybe that's my last question, but I'm always really intrigued whenever something like that happens. You might have seen it it's like every now and then. For example, I'm going back to Instagram again.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do an A/B test, but out of nowhere, the entire Europe or America has a completely new rebrand. It has full new visual identity, for example. Or I don't know, you probably can relate to 5 or 4 different versions of the app, completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Not a color change, but completely different functionality. How do you look at that from a product analyst side? Because to me, it feels like in the first 2 weeks, all my friends are like, have you seen this new update? It looks insanely. We hate it. We really want to go back to the old version. And then if you were to run an experiment for 2 weeks, you would see all metrics go down.
Yeah.
But then after a month, people out of nowhere, they're getting used to it. And they're like, actually, I kind of like this.
So this is what you described, right? The long-term impact versus short-term impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that has a name actually. So it's called novelty effect.
Mm-hmm.
We know about it. It doesn't mean that we never get fooled by it, but by knowing about it, we can have some mechanisms to at least try to remove it, because we want to catch what's the long-term effect. So what we usually try to do is understand, first of all, if a certain feature is expected to have a novelty effect. UX changes are known, especially the big ones. So if you completely rebrand something, make the filters go to a whole new place, you should expect friction. Novelty effects can both be positive or negative. If it takes more time for people to find something they use, then you're going to see that as a negative novelty effect. But it could also be that you, for example, pull forward some of the conversions that would happen otherwise in the future with your novelty effect. So there's multiple ways in which you can try to estimate. Ultimately, there's the estimate, yes, and then there's the results and just observing the data and seeing when does it rebase to a new normal. So that's what we usually look for that elbow, for that moment where it either goes back up or down to a more stable level. And I think what is critical in order to be able to do this assessment is that you collect data for long enough. So in experiments where we do expect a novelty effect, we need to allow for more time to collect data.
No. So your question sparks 2 things in me. The first thing is you need to have faith at a certain point. So let's say you do this A/B test between this green button and this yellow button. You collect the data. You believe it's a good idea based on what you see. At a certain point, you're going to have to make the call, are we going to do this or not? You can't indefinitely keep one green button and one yellow button. Yeah. But as soon as you change it, you never know what would have happened in the other alternative world, right? Let's say you did keep the button green and you decided to make it yellow. So with a big UX change, I can imagine there was a test on a small scale, but at some point you need to be brave enough to pull the trigger and to go for it. I said there were 2 things. Now I'm desperately trying to remember what the second thing is. And I can't remember.
No,
so
usually when we try the hardest is when it just doesn't come again.
It's part of experimenting.
I guess you have to come back at some
underneath
point.
under the shower tonight.
That's when you're biking home.
Always.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's how it works.
But for real, I really think we joked about it in the beginning of the espresso machine and the traits that are coming with product analytics. But I must say it's super interesting, hearing all the things that you guys are doing, and also learned a lot of what it actually entails, what skills you would need. So I really want to thank you guys for all the cool insights today.
Well, thank you for inviting us. I mean, it was a pleasure. It's maybe we love our jobs too much, but it's always a pleasure to talk about these things. And part of me hopes that more people get enticed by not necessarily the career. I think that's a very lame thing to say, enticed by the career. But, that more people feel that this way of thinking and approaching problems in general, in life, is something for them.
Yeah.
If they could listen to this and just reflect on which biases they might be carrying and how they might be observing situations in life and displaying confirmation bias, for example. So, being more likely to accept evidence that confirms their initial belief, I think that would already make the world a better place. So those are my 2 cents for society.
Wow, nice.
Oh, I can't top that. All I can say is when I told my colleagues I was going to be here, I just told them I'm going to preach the gospel of product analytics and hope to convince some people.
Love it. I think you've made that work.
Let's see in the numbers. Let's see. Check the metrics later.
We'll see.
I would definitely want to accept your invitation to analyze our numbers.
We can do that. We can help.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye.